Global Multidão, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Berlin.
Welcome everybody, hello. It's quite hot here and it's getting even hotter with our topic now because we talk about energy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us and for making space in your busy calendars, and also to our audience following along in our live stream. A wonderful good midday here from Berlin in at COP30. It's lovely to have you with us, and thanks for joining our conversation when we talk about how to empower the global energy transition through partnerships. And this event is initiated by the Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear more about how to make it accessible, the topic of Germany's bilateral energy partnerships, how to reach those global ambitions that are also debated here, of course, during COP30, through joint action, through shared benefit, and through local ownership. And with all these perspectives, we will have different perspectives already. In a second, you can see the chairs here on the stage as well, joining us from the sector of policy and governance, from the sector of international cooperation, from the technical and private sector, and from the perspective of the civil society, really to dive deep into the question on how to make these energy partnerships just and accelerating in a just way. But before we dive in, I hand over for the official opening remarks to the head of division for international hydrogen ramp-up and bilateral hydrogen infrastructure cooperation at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. It's a very long title, but please give him a round of applause to Dr. Gunther Grathwohl.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gallus, for the kind introduction. And thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to open this event on behalf of the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. Now we left the climate part to the Ministry for Environment again, but we keep the energy part. And this is what is today about. It's about the international cooperation, about our energy partnerships. And I very much appreciate it to talk to you and with you on this issue today here in the COP30 in Berlin. I mean, tripling renewables and doubling efficiency by 2030 will only be possible through strong international partnerships. And Germany is aiming still for climate neutrality by 2045 and will continue to support the expansion of renewable energies both at home and abroad. And it's both equally important for us. That means that international cooperation is absolutely key for a country like Germany with such a huge share of imports and exports in its gross domestic product. And the energy partnerships provide a political platform for dialogue with partner governments while engaging also the private sector and civil society as well to jointly advance the energy transition. We have partnerships with 32 countries, and our energy partnerships put cooperation into practice. We scale successful ideas, adapt them to local contexts, and strengthen energy security through diversified collaboration. Together, we build then trust, attract investment, and help create stable and fair energy systems. Yeah, I'm personally very much involved in hydrogen issues. My unit is dealing with international hydrogen partnerships that are only part of the energy partnerships as a whole, but this we can discuss later here in the panel more in detail. So thank you very much. As said, it's a big pleasure to be here, although it's very hot, but perhaps that should to be so in this conference here to get used to the new normal in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gunther. And with that, of course, let's dive right into our beautiful and interesting panel. So may I kindly ask my panelists to join us on stage. So please, Ingrid Hoven, Dr. Jorge Islas, André Clark, and Rosana Santos, join me here on stage. And I'll do a proper introduction when we have a normal breathe in and when we are seated. Rosana, here we go. And for everybody who needs translation from Spanish to English, we have translating devices if you are in need. Our colleagues from the check-in counter, they provide you with all the technicalities. We have different channels, but we will speak, of course, Spanish and English. These are the two languages here on stage. So if you are in need, please feel free to grab your mic. Wonderful. So I do a proper introduction as said when we are seated down. This is way more relaxing now. You're still smiling, which is a good sign, so wonderful. Gunther, I did the introduction for you as well already, so I would skip you now with the introduction round. Next to you is seated Ingrid Hoven. Ingrid is or has been the managing director of the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Internationale Zusammenarbeit, known as GIZ, since 2020. Thank you for making space in your calendar for joining us for this important conversation. And next to you is seated Dr. Jorge Islas, joining us from the Mexican Ministry of Energy. He's the Undersecretary for Planning and Energy Transition at Mexico's Ministry of Energy, and he's a physicist and an energy economist. He has extensive experience in renewable energy policy and, of course, in everything related to the national energy transition strategies from the Mexican context. Is the translation working? I hope so. Perfect. Until we are getting to the questions, we will get it ready. And next to you is seated André Clark. André is the Senior Vice President of Siemens Energy from Latin America and the Vice President of Siemens Energy Brazil. You are leading the company's regional strategy for advancing the energy transition. You're focusing on innovation, transformation, and of course, renewable integration and industrial decarbonization across Latin America. That's a long to-do list, and we want to hear all about it. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, seated next to me, Rosana Santos. Beautiful that you are here as well, coming and joining us from the Institute to E+ Energy Transition in Brazil. You're the executive director in Brazil, and you're an electrical engineer with over 30 years of experience in the energy sector. You worked with Enel, Alstom, EDP, and you're focusing on renewable energy and industrial transformation. We want to hear all about it as well. So a big round of applause to all my panelists once again. When we focus on the question on how can bilateral energy partnerships be transformed, be created, be designed to transform political ambition into real-world climate action that is, of course, not just efficient, but it's inclusive, effective, and beneficial for all different stakeholders, for all the partners. And you bring a different perspective to that question onto the panel. So I would like to start with you, André. Coming, of course, from the private sector engagement part, which is as essential as we hear so often here during COP30 when it comes to reaching these ambitious targets. from your perspective to scale up the private sector engagement, but also to scale up the private sector's lever in that way. What is the biggest lever and the biggest to-do that you see for the global effort for decarbonization?
So first of all, the idea of partnership is at the center of what's going on here. I give you a very small example, and I would like to recognize GIZ's work on this country and with us. For this conference, we put our monies together to train 200 students for 3 years into green jobs. This is what we did together, right? And this is a federal school. This is the depth of the relationship of Germany with the region. Also the works on hydrogen and all the resources. What's going on right now is that the scientists, right there, the lead of them is a German scientist saying, no more hydrocarbons in the atmosphere. The economists are saying, if you speed that up too quickly, everybody breaks. It is about, the energy transition is about reality. So it is about every carbon counts. If we're able to apply technology to decarbonize processes, increase energy efficiency, gradually exchange coal to gas and everything else, together we're able to do it. Germany just yesterday released its gas expansion plan, 2 gigawatts dedicated to green hydrogen at the grid. Gas, but also green hydrogen. This is new, and we're all learning together. Those multirão, which is about COP, this is what's going on.
And would you say multirão, it's not just a word or a nice claim, it's really working on the ground as well already? Do you see that and do you sense that?
Yes, we're seeing this every day. Today at our entry, we had an Brazilian indigenous population making their point at the entrance. They want to be heard. They were being treated fairly, no violence whatsoever. They were being heard. Everybody was able to enter in a decent way, and we need to accommodate everybody. This is the first COP for many years in a democratic setting. This is a COP of dialogue.
Perfect. Joining to Jorge, so we all need our translation if you're not fluent in Spanish. Jorge, coming to you and talking with you, of course, coming from the Mexican perspective, how can countries like Mexico and how can regions like Latin America leverage these partnerships when it comes to partnerships with the private sector? How can these partnerships attract more private investment and then, of course, strengthen the local industry capacity for energy projects so that the power really stays on the ground and with the local perspective?
Well, I think that there are many ways in which you can have cooperation. In several countries of the region, we still don't have an exact evaluation of renewable energy sources. In Mexico, for example, we are dealing with a challenge right now of calculating or estimating the marine wind energy potential. And so we think that it's very high, because in Mexico we have 10,000 kilometers of coastline, and there are studies by the International Development Bank with satellite imagery. And so we think that we have a very high potential in southern Mexico and also in northern Mexico, where we have the border with Texas, and in the state of Yucatan. So what do we need? We need technical cooperation between countries, with countries who are experienced in marine wind power. So we need to learn more about methods, measuring, good strategies, And we also need investment. And so I think that this could serve as a great example for Mexico in that case. And that this could also be carried out in other Latin American countries. And so that way we could then see how we could have a faster energy transition once we can make use of these renewable energy sources that we think we have, if we can then tell that we have a significant potential there. And so that way we could then have regulatory frameworks for that, for private investment and also public investment. And we could then have a positive cycle, a virtuous cycle in which we can get the necessary resources, we can use renewable energy sources, and have the necessary framework conditions for private and public investments.
Jorge, just allow me one question again. What is something that you're most proud of, because you can really see the change through these energy partnerships? What has tremendously changed that makes, of course, Mexico proud as well to see the effects of a partnership? Can you name one thing?
Well, I think that Mexico has a long tradition when it comes to technical cooperation with several countries. Germany is one of them, and we are relaunching a strategic alliance between Mexico and Germany. We'll do that in these coming 3 weeks. We'll visit Berlin with a team of experts, and we'll talk about the details of this alliance and about a possible technical cooperation. And with Germany, we also have a cooperation, but also with the Netherlands. We're also initiating an important cooperation with the UK and also with some NGOs. We have a lot of NGO participation in Mexico, like the Climate Action NGOs, but also the Energy Institute for the Development of Clean Energy Sources. So we have a think tank in Mexico, and together with those stakeholders, we would like to carry out studies for intelligent grids, microgrids, communities and cities. So that has been a tradition, and we would like to continue with that tradition. And I think this is the right moment, because we just went through a constitutional reform that now allows us to have this kind of technical cooperation, to also attract private and public investment and technologies. And finally, we also had a national call for tenders for private projects of 6,000 megawatts. And so at the end of the year, we'll share the results.
We are looking forward to hear more, of course, about that. And of course, the upcoming partnership coming up in the next 3 weeks. We will have our eyes and ears peeled for that. Rosana, coming back, of course, from the partnership perspective to the local community level. And of course, this is where I'd like to talk with you when it comes to your experiences like Brazil, like partnerships in Brazil. What are then the models for translating inclusive energy policies onto and into the community level? What is important when it comes to these partnerships to really have an effort, a benefit for the community level?
For the community level, you mean? Yeah. Because it's really,
I know, I'm
really
so sorry.
loud.
Yeah, if you can't understand me, that's,
I'm just standing beside her and I couldn't hear what she was saying.
Welcome to my club.
Thank Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to hear more about the community level, what you see, what is crucial for public-private partnerships, for energy partnerships that are transitioned inclusively on a local level?
Yeah, I mean, the case of Brazil is different. It's a little bit different from the case of other Latin American countries in some sense, and in other senses is absolutely the same. Specifically speaking, on community level access to power, we are talking basically about this region here, where we do have a population, a considerably large population, still without electricity or electricity run by fossil fuels, which is kind of very weird thing. We are in the middle of the Amazon, and we do have a system that runs on fossil fuels. So at community level, what we can do is use the partnership to tailor-made some alternatives to supply energy for these communities. Power, not only power, but energy, which is more than power. And what I am to say is that solar panels are not the only solution. They have to come combined with a lot of knowledge, because, for example, one of the biggest problems that we have is that when you supply only with solar panels with batteries, after the life cycle of the battery is over, first, there is no recycling, because it's easy to say when you are just sitting beside someone with roads and easy way to go, sorry. But when you have to travel by boat to catch the batteries, I don't know where. So it's really, really difficult. So we have to think about the batteries, and what a think tank, a partner think tank of ours found out doing a research on what happened to those solar home systems that were supplied to some communities in the Amazon. In the end, those batteries were used to anchor boats. So it's not okay. So it's absolutely not okay. And so this is what I'm saying, is that sometimes we have to go after chapter 2 to get and supply something for this. And I think a partnership that can bring money and knowledge and capacity building even from domestically speaking, and even cooperation with Germany, I think is something that we are really in need of some I don't know, something to help those guys to supply the supply of energy. This is one thing. And another thing on the community level, and I'm going not community, I don't know if you know, but with GIZ, there is a very important program that is led by the government of São Paulo with GIZ, supported by GIZ, which is the Potencialize, which is on energy efficiency. And what I like of that project is it concentrates in small companies, small, even not centralized, not very urban companies. So they are doing a program to go and see the small industrial processes that those small and medium companies have, and help them to get into the decarbonizing world by efficiency. And this is a project that is very successful. It's with GIZ support, and I think we should be in a way to replicate this project everywhere in Brazil. And if I may just one more word, my first job was with Siemens.
Now you're together back on the panel. That is a sign of partnership, I would say.
Let me tell you another story. Yesterday, I went visiting one of the isolated systems that we operate. We provide energy for 400,000 people in isolated communities here. 99.8% of the Brazilian population is connected to the grid. The 0.8 is on the isolated systems. One thing of reality of energy transition, we transited from diesel 300, high content of sulfur, to S10, which is a much better diesel. Just that reduced the carbon footprint by 20%. So sometimes you're doing diesel for diesel and you're still decarbonizing. Every carbon counts.
And every step counts as well. We're just talking about the GIZ project that you mentioned, based in Sao Paulo. And of course, I'm looking to Ingrid now because this really is the ramp to ask you, of course, how to come from the policy dialogues into pilot projects that are really smartly and well designed. On which specific approaches or formats have you seen that are most effective coming from the GIZ implementation side?
Yeah, thank you, Kati, and many thanks to the Ministry for Economic Affairs for having me in this panel. I would like to start, if you allow me, Kati, perhaps to put these energy partnerships a little bit into the perspective. I mean, first I would like to commend the government, the German government, to have actually finalized with 32 countries these partnerships. And they represent 4 billion people and 60% of energy use. So this is a big, big network around the world. And GIZ is supporting these partnerships when it comes to emerging economies and developing countries. But we don't do this alone, and I would like to recognize in the audience one of our dearest partners, the DENA, the German Energy Agency, Mrs. Haverkamp. So wonderful partnership. I wanted to underline this. So what can we achieve in those partnerships? I think what we can do is actually that we, at bilateral level, at ICE level, we speak about win-win opportunities. We are partnering with countries that see actually that the energy transition provides them with more energy security. And this has become a big issue because wars, conflicts, they have actually provoked a huge increase in energy prices. So those countries that rely on imported energy, same is true for Germany, of course they experience these economic impacts. And this is also true for many, many emerging economies. So energy security is a big issue now. How do you get there? I think when we invest into renewable energy and especially in energy efficiency, this is one of the cheapest roads actually to energy security, if you take it seriously, and there's still a lot more to do in this sector. Then, of course, you can reduce your dependency on others and decrease prices. And this is actually very important for the economy and for livelihoods, also in rural areas. So we have a different framework right now. Partnerships are so important in order to accelerate learning, knowledge sharing, and innovation. In many countries, technology is available, but we don't have the ecosystem that would actually make it feasible for small and medium-sized enterprises to grab those opportunities. And this is exactly what this project in Brazil is about. So we work with the small and medium-sized enterprises. We provide data, what kind of technology really would be beneficial for their business. We make a business case. We speak to commercial banks, they provide the credits, but the prices are reduced. Commercial banks are a little bit risk averse, and when you speak about new technology in the energy efficiency sector, say, I don't know whether this is really going to pay off. So again, we did a lot of information, awareness raising with commercial banks. We provided guarantee schemes. And we created an ecosystem, and when you look into the numbers, which every euro that we have invested, and the funding comes from the Mitigation Action Facility. So again, a big partnership. Thank you so much for those that have provided and financed into the MAF. For every euro spent by the MAF in this project, the leverage is 20 euros. This is really huge with small and medium-sized enterprises. Third point and last point, I know I have been a bit too long, the private sector. The big energy transformation can only be achieved with more investments from the private sector. So when we speak to countries like India, when we speak with countries like South Africa, the private sector is at the table. We would like to create conditions that investments coming from abroad, also from Germany, are really beneficial to the country, to the recipient country, but at the same time also are incentivizing more investments, job creation, economic activities by German investors. And this is part of these energy partnerships. We identify the concrete regulatory barriers, the concrete innovative mechanisms that we have to agree upon, make it happen, and by this actually, this is really a win-win opportunity, and this is at the core of energy partnerships.
Thank you, Ingrid. I'm turning now to Gunther because, of course, as you already mentioned, you're the head of division for international hydrogen at the Ministry for Economy in Germany. So green hydrogen is, of course, increasingly seen as a key driver for achieving global climate neutrality. We are very curious, of course, to hear more about your perspective and how Germany's bilateral cooperation on hydrogen or on green hydrogen can help to partner. Can be a help for partner countries in Germany to meet the decarbonization and the COP30 objectives and the targets. So what is, of course, again, on your desk when it comes to green hydrogen partnerships?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Before I come to that, I would like to take the opportunity also to say thank you very much to GIZ and to DENA, because those organizations are helping us and managing the energy partnerships, realizing them and filling them with life. So thank you very much for that. And also to the other three panelists, I wanted to say that I was very happy to hear about your experiences with the energy partnerships, because I think that's exactly the way they should work. They should be or they should create win-win situations for both related countries and also having impact on the local and community level. And that was here very impressive mentioned. So thank you for that. Then coming perhaps to hydrogen, to green hydrogen. Yes, it's true. Germany is a dense populated industrial country. We have still a very high share of our GDP in industry, and industry needs energy, and some sectors in industry does not only need electricity or power, but also molecules. So to come to to make the 2045 net zero goals, the goals of this conference happen, we have to go away from natural gas and coming to other green alternatives. And here we see hydrogen perhaps as a key player, but it's difficult to produce hydrogen, in particular green hydrogen, in Germany, because the country is already full with windmills and the sun is not shining so much, so we are dependent on imports. And so Germany will remain and will perhaps be in future even more a hydrogen import country. That's very crucial for us. And for importing, we need partnerships, that's sure. And we have two pillars of partnerships here, perhaps. One is European partnerships with countries around Germany. And we try to, or we work very closely together with the European Commission to create a European hydrogen backbone grid to transport hydrogen from one region, for example Spain, where it is very easy and cheap to produce, to the center of Europe, where our industry can then use it. And then we have this other pillar, which goes beyond Europe and also tries to facilitate import routes via ships for ammonia from all places over the globe where green hydrogen can cheaply be being produced to Germany. But also, we have also a program that supports countries that try to elaborate own hydrogen production and use in their own country, and we also want to support them because it's a contribution to decarbonization. So with this, we also contribute to the goals of this conference here.
Rosana, is that music to your ears? No, I thought so because you were. What are the critical points where you maybe get a headache? Not just because of the heat, but because, of course, it comes down to a lot of details that need to be elaborated. What are the details we need?
I'm already incorporated the heat, like, what I see from what our colleague Gunther has just said is that, of course, renewable energies are going green in Germany in terms of power sector. And I lived in Germany for a while, so we are in Germany quite often. So it is expensive, it's no territory, so we do understand that. But you do need to go green because of other things, if not because of households. You have to supply your households with green energy. What I mean is that producing hydrogen here in Brazil and counting on hydrogen exports to Germany. So in steel making, you import hydrogen and you import iron ore. This doesn't make any environmental sense whatsoever. So exporting a little bit just for us to learn the market and learn how to do it, it's okay, it's needed. And this is what GIZ is doing greatly there in Pecém, in Ceará. This is great because everybody has to learn how to deal with this molecule. But this is not a sustainable way of arranging this supply chain. The only way to arrange the supply chain is for us to export the energy embedded in some product. If not, to Germany, in HBI, in the case of steel, or in any other supply chain, hydrogen embedded in some project. Because imagine that, and sorry, it's very, very important this. Imagine that if I am exporting iron ore to Germany and hydrogen, iron ore, let's say it's 50% iron, 50% dirt. So I am exporting 50% iron, 50% dirt with a ship that has to be decarbonized. And then I'll be exporting a molecule that has to be transformed from hydrogen into ammonia, from ammonia transported overseas, from ammonia into hydrogen to Rotterdam, from Rotterdam to Germany. So it doesn't make environmental sense. So let's start thinking and use the collaboration of GIZ and our collaboration, and exactly what we stated in this stage here yesterday, saying that we have to better do that. And Germany and Brazil, we are able to do better than that. So sorry to say, but I think only betting in importing hydrogen, I don't believe in that. For God's sake, I'm wrong, but I don't believe in that.
Thank you. Gunther, what is your take on that? And then, of course, all good. And then come in with your thoughts as well. Because, Gunther, how to make these partnerships then just? How would you conquer the argument that Rosana just mentioned?
I only want to reply very briefly on that, what you said. I think you are, in general, right. Doesn't make sense to import huge amounts of hydrogen from Brazil to Germany in order to use them there in industrial sectors. From an economical point of view, however, it may make sense to import certain amounts from far abroad if the production costs are very low in those countries where we import hydrogen. But I think Brazil is not under those countries, so I think you're right. And the solution for Germany will not be to import huge amounts from far away, but from European neighbor countries. I'm talking about Denmark or about Spain, and I think it makes sense to build up a European hydrogen backbone, also to help the market to establish, because up until now we don't have a market for green hydrogen. I think we need that, and that could help also other regions in the world if they see that it works in Europe at least. Yeah?
I'm.
Not to turn into this a dialogue.
No, I shouldn't.
But iron ore comes from here.
I think this is very interesting. I told you it's going to be a heated discussion, and you will be included in a second. So you get ready, your fired up questions. No worries, you're all good. This is why I love my job. I know. André, I'd like to bring the conversation maybe away from green hydrogen, but we still stick in that, defining the way of a just, equitable partnership. And of course, as coming from the private industry, in the private sector, of course, this regulatory ecosystem needs to be in favor of being capable of creating and designing a partnership. So again, from your perspective, what's needed for that ecosystem of regulations that are currently rather a break or that are currently working well? What do you seek right now and I would love to see it from the Latin American perspective, not just from the Brazilian perspective, but really to go a bit bigger into the scope.
Oh, and it's actually, if you go to global perspective and what's going on in COP30 is how do we create the $1.3 trillion investment in the energy transition, right? This is one of our biggest objectives. The good news on one side is that we reached 0.3 trillion with public funding. We found the money. We need the other trillion there. So that's point number one. The other part is that there's no lack of money. There's no lack of money. The world invests around 30 trillion every year. 2% comes to the developing world of that. So it's not a matter of having money, it's how do you make these assets investable. And when you ask for regulation, what is ahead of us? If we are really, really serious, and I know GayZ is, I know the ministry is, and I definitely know that Rosana is, we are creating assets commodities that didn't exist before. It needs regulation. The example of green steel here. It didn't fly. You don't know if a certain steel is green or not. You don't know who are the producers of green steel, and the demand needs to know that. It requires regulation. It requires carbon accounting. In my company, I need to do accounting of money. I should be doing accounting of carbon as well. So that society, my investors, come in and say, you did not do your job. Maybe you're giving us the profits that you promised. You're not lowering your carbon footprint. This is being discussed right now. The other idea are the new assets that are beginning to form. President Lula, also in the presence of Chancellor Merz, released the Tropical Fund Forever, right? It's a major endeavor on the idea that forests around the planet serve humanity in a certain way. Therefore, they provide a certain service. Therefore, they are a kind of infrastructure. Is this investable? In the things that are being created, yes, they are. They can. If governments form a certain protection of risk, and then forest is a new infrastructure as humankind, they're investable. And I'm betting in 5 years, we will be calling our brokers and saying, please invest in a green forest fund because I want my money there. This is going to happen.
Wonderful. I'd like to have the Mexican perspective on here. So I look to Jorge. Jorge, when we talk about the ecosystem of regulations and, of course, the ecosystem of creating an investment-friendly ecosystem, what would you say, what is then, of course, on the plus side when it comes to the Mexican ecosystem and the Mexican ecosystem for good regulations, for investment possibilities that these just energy partnerships are flying off?
Well, as I said before, we just went through an important energy reform, and that started with a constitutional reform. Then we reformed 12 different acts, and we already published the changes. and they entered into force. So now we have this new constitutional framework, and with that framework we strengthen public-private investments, and I think that's very important. And at the same time, now we are treating certain topics that were not covered enough by the institutional frameworks. For example, we now have a law especially for biofuels, and we'll also look into biorefineries. We'll start with fuel mixes including ethanol, including biodiesel. And we are very thankful because we actually have an agreement with Brazil. And that is also important because a lot of the technical cooperation, people think that it's always a north-south cooperation. But we also have south-south cooperation. And I feel that that kind of cooperation can also be very important. And we are starting this cooperation with Brazil, and Brazil will help us with their experience in biofuels. And that will be very important for Mexico to start a biofuel market with ethanol and also with alternative aviation fuels, with diesel and biogas, for example. And so I also want to highlight that. And then there's also an important new law, and that's the geothermal law. Now, I know that Germany has a lot of experience that you can share with us, and there's also new technologies with binary cycles that we can make use of in Mexico, because for us it's a very important renewable energy source. And let me share one more example. Mexico also now has a project with solar thermal power plants. So here we have very high factors, we have very solid energy production here, not a lot of variables with these power plants. So we want to further develop this technology because we have a lot of sunshine in northern Mexico, and so we can have a lot of solar thermal power plants with very solid energy production, and that way we could finally resolve the energy problem. So that would be a competitive technology that can help us develop our country, and also a technology that can help Mexico participate and also share this technology with the world, so we can further mature with this technology and share it with Brazil, for example, with Africa and other countries. And so for that, it's very important that we have this technical cooperation. For example, Germany was one of the countries starting with this technology, but then Spain also supported it, then the United States, and now currently China. But Mexico still has to develop it, and we need technical cooperation.
I know I'm also the timekeeper, which is also a bit heated. Do I see any questions here in the room? We have time for a fired up question. Yes, not all at once, please. Absolutely. Well, then I have the last question. That's beautiful. My directors, they will love me for being in time. So Ingrid, I'd like to finish up with you because, you know, we heard about South-South cooperation. We heard different perspectives. Again, because the GIZ, I see GIZ so often as a bridge builder as well, bringing different perspectives into these projects. What would be, from your perspective and from what you've heard, and for all the project implementators among us, what would be a top priority again to also include the local levels, to include all these voices? Because it is a tough job, right, to bring everybody to the table, but it's doable in a way, as we heard from some projects. So again, what is one thing that is a priority in these just energy partnerships?
I would like to underline 2 points as a closing. First, in line with the comments made by our friend from Siemens Energy. We have to admit that, of course, funding is available and we may create additional asset class, but we have to recognize that most of the funding, the financing for the renewable energy sector already comes from the private sector, but only a low percentage goes to countries of the global south due to perceived risks and regulatory frameworks. So we have to overcome this. So we need some kind of risk-reducing schemes. We have to work in countries that the regular program is really inducing investments from the private sector, local companies, the commercial sector, but also investments from abroad. First thing, urgently needed, really to upscale the energy transformation. And secondly, just transition, when we started to debate this, and this was said also this morning by Jochen Flassbart, we thought, oh, this is like only treating with specific regions, not getting out of coal and then it's done. I think we have now realized it's a profound transformation of the whole society and economy. And there we have to be very cognizant about the fact that we have to bring the different stakeholders to the table. And they have to see the opportunities, the win-win opportunities, the bettering of their livelihoods. And I think we have to change a bit our narrative. So not starting from perhaps the energy perspective, but starting from the perspective what a transformed energy system would bring to the economy. More security, lower prices, more jobs, new job opportunities, new skills that are beneficial for the young generation. And I think this is starting now, and I'm super optimistic that this new narrative will really change also the perception whether this transformation is doable and whether it's worthwhile pursuing, because it really brings a difference to the people. So this is the people-centered COP, and the energy transformation can really bring a lot of benefits to people.
Thank you so much to these closing words, and thanks to all the panelists, to Dr. Gunther Grathwohl, Ingrid Hoven, Dr. Jorge Islas, muchas gracias, André Clark, and Rosana Santos. This is your round of applause. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us here on Energy Day. It was about energy, energy, energy. We brought some energy on the stage. And thank you for watching us in the live stream. I hope to see you soon. We have a wonderful program here along the way. So please join us every time you feel interested here at the wonderful German Climate Pavilion. And with that, I say thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Global Mochidao, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Berlin.